Hello, welcome to another episode of Somewhere Between, a film and TV podcast. We're your hosts. I am Daniel Parra.
And I'm Erwin.
And if you've never listened to us before, number one, thank you so much. It means the world. We took a little bit of a break. We didn't really mean to, but life, getting busy and stuff. You know how it is. How was your spring break?
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic.
What'd you do?
I did
As
a
if I
lot of
wasn't
things.
there. As if I wasn't there with Erwin
Oh, I don't
for
know.
like
I
half
just
half the
worked.
spring break.
Yeah, I worked.
Yeah,
Went to South by Southwest, I guess.
kind of.
Kind of.
I guess we'll get into that. So, by the way, if you guys ever plan on going to any kind of film festival thing whatsoever, make sure you have it planned,
It
like
doesn't
in
even matter if it's
advance.
film. It's just any festival. Just
Any
plan it
kind of
out.
festival, yeah.
Like
Learn that the hard way.
even whenever we went
Because,
to like ACL, like we kind of planned it, but at the same time, it's
yeah,
just like it's still it was our first time going.
yeah, and it was fun. That shit
Yeah.
was hard.
Yeah.
Like, I got so sick after that. I remember. Actually, we had just started the show whenever we were doing
hmm
ACL, and I remember I was like, we were reviewing No Time to Die, and I was just getting over whatever I had, because I didn't have COVID then. I had COVID back in like January, or I guess you can get it again, but I mean, whatever. I didn't test positive then for it. Anyway, we are reviewing Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, the new anime film, and the new A24 horror movie X. Just so you guys know, if you've never listened to us before, we do everything with full spoilers, just to clarify. And I think we'll start with X, because that's the most recent thing I saw. What'd you think of it? Also, did you know anything about it going into it?
No, I I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was that it was an A24 movie, and it was some type of horror. That was it.
Yeah, you didn't know the plot or anything.
No, I didn't know I didn't know the plot.
Hmm. Uh, what are your thoughts on it?
I liked it overall. I had a few things, like a few problems with it, but I think for me, I guess when it comes to horror, it's like definitely one of like these type of movies where it just feels so. It didn't feel different, I guess. And
Hmm.
what sucks when it comes to horror movies is when you put a bunch of characters in one movie that only one or two characters stand out while the others
Yeah.
just like are just coming along with those characters. And it kind of sucks when any type of death happens, you don't really feel much of an impact. It just happens. You're like, "Oh, okay." Because when it comes to like gruesome deaths, I'm not a big fan of it. Not because I'm like disgusted by it, but it's just not just not scary for me.
You're like someone's mom. You're like, what is this filth that you're watching on the TV?
No, I don't think that way.
Unless it's Saw. Um, no, I think we're on different pages on this one because I love this movie, but I know we tend to differ on horror as it is anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Mr. I thought Malignant was just okay, and that's
It
you.
was okay.
No way, man. I loved Malignant, but that's a separate conversation. Uh, I don't know. It's interesting because I thought it was funny that A24 made a movie this straightforward in terms of horror, and I was like, this reminds me of like Scream earlier in the year with Jenna Ortega. There's that she's in this as well, and in my dreams sometimes, and she'll be like, that's that scene where she
That
talks
was
about
so
elevated.
weird to say. That was just out of
Okay,
nowhere.
can I tell you a weird dream I had the other day? It
No.
doesn't involve this. I'm going to.
Oh.
Uh, so we were. I think you were in this dream, by the way.
No, I wasn't. I
Uh,
wasn't there.
but it happened.
Jane, you and I are like an hour apart away. What does that mean?
I think about you.
Oh, okay.
uh, I was at a mall, right? Which number one? Who even goes to malls anymore?
People still go to the
But
malls. It's not just high schoolers.
I don't agree with you.
Didn't you
I,
go to the mall like a couple of months ago?
if you're talking about, is the domain the mall?
I don't know.
If so, then yes, I guess. But anyway, we were in like one of those Dillard's Macy's situation type stores,
Okay.
and this person walked up to us. It was a girl with black hair, right? And started talking, and then for some reason, you disappeared. I don't know where you went.
Yeah, you
And
would
then,
get rid of me. Makes sense. It's like, oh, girl, get rid of anybody around me so I can just talk to a
oh
girl.
yeah, you want me to bring up high school? The one time that you and I were the only people that knew each other in our what was it, like human geography or whatever it
Or
was,
was like the
and
history
then
class?
yeah,
So
so
it's a
then you
wait, I had
paired
a
me.
chance to talk to a beautiful girl, and you were gonna take that from me? Is that
Yeah,
what
and I
it
got
is?
stuck with a dumb fuck partner
Hey, that's
because
your
of it.
problem, man. You should have, like,
I remember you came up to me and you were like, "Hey, I can't be paired with you because, you get it right."
I do
was
remember
like,
that though. That was so funny.
yeah, I was like, "Sure."
Sorry, man, I had to. And look
Where's
where
she
that
now,
got me.
bro?
Huh?
I said, "Where's she now, bro?"
Yeah, I don't know. She don't know me, bro.
She don't know you.
She probably wouldn't
Uh,
recognize me.
yeah, no, that's the same. Like I luck out on that with high school people. Like they don't typically are like, I feel like I recognize you, but I don't know you.
It's like,
You're
no,
like,
I'm
you
still the same.
don't. I like movies, man. Um. Anyway, it'll discuss like elevated horror, the Scream, and we even forgot to touch on that in our review of it because I dislike that term severely.
It was
Um.
a thriller.
No. I don't like that either. Thriller can't be as expansive as it is to be a real genre. It makes no sense.
Or you pretentious fuck.
Uh, but A24 making honestly just kind of a slasher movie. Like the one thing that's very artsy about it, and I found it incredibly disorienting, were the editing choices.
Mm-hmm.
It would do this thing where, like, typically, there would be a gruesome kill in a movie, and if it's rated R, they'll go all the way with it. But something I noticed is, and it's very early on, it's that first one, uh, kind of where you know how the lady's kind of out of it, or they imply that she's out of it, but she's really not. Uh, and she starts stabbing the first guy, like she first stabs him in the neck or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts away after that, and I thought the scene was just over, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then it'll do this thing where characters will be having a conversation again, and then it immediately pans back to like her killing the same person, and this happens a few different times, and I found this movie scary in its sort of way that it can manipulate the audience in terms of how this movie's edited particularly. I liked its kind of weird sort of grindhouse start where I noticed that the film grain look was like heavily there at the very beginning, and as the movie goes on it kind of fades away. I found that choice really interesting. And I guess I kind of want to ask you, like, what do you mean by problems necessarily? Because, like, I mean, I loved this, but I have a couple things with it.
I guess so. This movie was short, right? It was like
Yeah.
less. It was like 2 hours or like less than that. It felt.
It's an hour 45.
Yeah, and so for me, like the only two characters that really stood out to me were, of course, the one I forgot. I don't remember the actress's name.
Brittany Snow or Mia Goth?
Mia Goth.
Okay.
Yeah, Mia Goth, and like I didn't realize she was playing this the old lady as well.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, that was actually pretty good, like the makeup and everything. But yeah, like besides like those two like characters in that movie, like everyone else just felt so bland to me. Like they were just there, just waiting for something to happen, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Because especially when you have like a group of people like that, and like I guess like for me like the chemistry didn't really work with one another, and so when anything happened, you just didn't really feel like, oh, they're just killing people left and right without any much of an impact. You know, like
That's
also
interesting.
what is it? Like the grandpa, or not the grandpa? I don't know why I keep saying grandpa and grandma, but
The old man.
yeah, the old man.
Yeah.
I like the old man and the old lady, like their relationship, and I wanted to see more
Yeah.
of that because whenever it was like towards like the end of the movie, whenever they were just explaining more how the relationship developed and like how they were with one another, I really liked that, right? And it kind of made you sympathize with them
Yeah.
just a little bit, which I wanted a little bit more of, and then also with Mia Goth's character as well, because it didn't seem like she was the main character. Like if at first it didn't feel like she was the main character. It's just more like she was like, oh, what's happening? That's what she was doing, but like that's
Yeah.
for like the audience, like what is happening. But I also felt like Jenny Ortega's character was doing the same thing, and I'm just like confused. And then I don't know. It's like a lot of the characters didn't really stick to me.
Hmm. That's interesting because I kind of differ on like everything you just said. I liked all the characters in this like quite a fair amount. I love the like the sleazy guy that's like their manager, dude.
See, and
And
I guess I wish we should have seen more of that, like the relationship with him
yeah,
and with Mia Goth as well. Because like when these deaths happen, it's just I don't know. It's just it's not. I guess because it happens so fast, as well.
yeah,
You just don't even have a time like chance to like feel like what just happened. You know.
yeah. No, I also loved Kid Cudi in this, or Scott Muscudi, but it's hard for me to be like there are two people. Whenever you like an actor or like their music or whatever, and you're just like, it's awesome that they're in this, even if like their character doesn't even do a lot. You're just like, I'm happy they're here. It's hard to differ sometimes whenever like one of your favorite actors shows up in something, unless they're completely wasted and you're just like, why'd they get them for this? And I don't know. I like at the beginning of the movie, I always thought that Mia Goth was the main character. I thought her and Jenna Ortega basically were like the focuses of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, I don't want to call them like any of them get sidelined, because the way a slasher movie works is you're waiting for them to die. You're like, okay, when's this part happening? And I found that some of the deaths were actually quite funny. Like I found some of them really creative. I liked how Brittany Snow died quite a bit, and the punchline of that was really funny to me.
No, see,
She,
I just
like,
I don't know. Like for me, it just didn't work. I guess I'm not trying to compare it to Scream 4, but it was just another group of people as well, right? But I felt like
yeah.
that movie worked a lot just because of the chemistry between the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like when the deaths did happen, you were just like, oh no, like I didn't want that to happen. But with the characters here in the X, it just felt like when it just happened right away, you're just left with, oh okay, like cool, who's next type of thing.
I'll say this much: like, I don't think this beats Scream 5 like at all. I loved that movie, and that movie has the
Oh, Scream
ability
5.
to
I don't know why I keep saying Scream 4.
yeah. No, I mean I knew what you meant, but the one you haven't seen.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Or 2 or 3 or 4, right? That one's different in that like it gets to be self-aware and all that. Although I did find this movie kind of self-aware of itself, because the last line is literally like, there's another thing. I'm surprised A24 did this, but why is the last shot of this movie in the trailer? In the last line. Like I
don't remember the trailer. I don't think
Really?
I saw any trailers.
There was a Red Band trailer for this right before Scream, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it was like the way it ended, but it's also the tagline of the movie, so what can you do, I guess. The fucked up horror picture line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I liked this movie's aesthetic, really. It's I wanted to look up if it was shot on film or not, because I felt like it was.
I did like the part though at the end when you find out she's like the daughter of a preacher.
So that was the thing about this. Like a movie like this, you know how we always talk about how, and this is the most general, basic, not nice way of describing an A24 horror movie, is how not a lot happens, basically nothing happens for most of it.
Yes.
And like what I mean by that isn't that like, oh, I'm so disinterested, I'm so bored. I don't mean that. I just mean that like if a general audience were to walk into, I don't know, say, I guess Midsummer, they would be like, why is half of this movie just them talking to weird people out in I was waiting for like the thing the whole time. I was like, what's the thing here? Like, because you know how every horror movie kind of has that, I don't want to call it a twist, but it's sort of like what's the undercurrent what's going on underneath the surface
Yes.
thing that always happens in these movies.
Yes.
And that's actually the thing that didn't necessarily pan all the way out for me. Is I was like, what does that mean exactly? Does it mean she's super religious? Does it mean that I told Aaron after we were done watching it, I was like, oh, so it's just like she abandoned her parents for clout, basically, to get famous or whatever. And I like her motive kind of, but I was sort of like, I kind of wish that whatever that meant was more explained whenever it was over. Like, I don't
no,
need,
yeah. I mean, when I think
Yeah.
about it, it's like, remember that scene when Jenny Ortega was, I guess, like, the girls were helping her, like, take off her clothes or helping her get ready for, like, her sex scene, in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
And she took off the necklace, and it was, like, a shot of her taking off that neck of her, of the cross.
Yeah.
It's like, that ties back to, like, everything I would say whenever Mia Goth was telling Jenny Ortega's character, like, oh, she's a prude, or why is she giving us these looks, right?
Yeah.
And it goes to show why she kept saying all that stuff about her as well. I guess it's like when you look back at it, because, like, she's a daughter of a preacher, but then it's also what she said too, like, she wants to be famous, she wants to be known. I guess kind of similar to how her dad is,
Yeah.
but not in a sense
That makes
of
sense.
when it comes to religion, but more so in, like, another aspect.
Because her dad's one of those famous kind of like cable access
Yes.
preachers that originally, like, what I thought this movie was gonna be was that their motive was gonna be that the two old people were like super religious and they were like so mad that they were doing porn or whatever
Yeah.
at their. And then it turns out that they were just two really horny old people.
Yeah, basically, I was just like, oh, okay.
I thought that was sort of. It was weird, but I didn't dislike it. I was like, that's just a weird choice. That's all I could
No,
say
I didn't
about
dislike it
really.
because, like, now I wish I'm like, okay, well, I want to learn more about the relationship with the preacher and the daughter as well, and like how they two
Yeah.
basically want the same things of being known for what they want, but how they both differ in paths.
Yeah, they both pursue things in different ways.
Yeah.
It's interesting, this movie, because, like, while it is one of the more straightforward slasher movies I've seen in a bit, and it's kind of funny because that Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that came out, like, a couple months ago, or even just a month ago, I don't really remember, it was fucking terrible. This feels like a better kind of, not sequel, obviously, because they're different, but it feels like sort of like a spiritual successor of this kind of gross shock value, which not everybody's into that, I get it, kind of slasher movie. Like, that's why part of the reason I was like, are they gonna be like cannibals or something? Was because of, or they like tear off their faces or whatever, or their skin.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, like, she was
it'd be something
gonna,
like that.
like, take whoever, like, the old lady thought, like, was the most prettiest, and the old guy was gonna take, like, whoever, like, was the most handsomest type of thing.
Yeah, no, legit, that's what I thought was happening. I
Yeah.
thought they were gonna like rip off their skin or something
And put it on themselves. I'm like, okay, I could see that happening. But then I'm like, that wouldn't make sense with the old guy, because he's not really, he wasn't really shown as much as, like, as compared to the old lady.
Yeah. No, for a lot of the movie, I thought that the old guy was actually gonna be like a nice dude.
Yeah.
No, not really. I really liked. There's not jump scares in this movie necessarily, but there's scenes that did freak me out, kind of. And one involves. It's so easy, for you to get somebody with this. It's whenever somebody peeks out of like an eye hole, and then obviously something will show up in that, like the little circle or the eye hole or whatever. The thing with the guy, where he gets his eye poked out or whatever, both of them with the, what do they call it, pitchfork?
Yes.
It reminded me of, we have a friend, Ramos, he has an eye thing, like a phobia of it, and I was like, I don't think you should ever watch this, or, I don't know, sometimes I think about that, like I used to know someone that, I don't know, had a fear of people throwing up, not them throwing up, or them too, but like, throwing up, just in general. And that's a weird tangent, but I do remember that. Do you have any other issues or anything else that you liked about this?
Um, no, nothing else. I do I do like the relationship or what they were trying to establish with the old man and the old lady, and I like Mia Goth's character more at the very end, whenever we found out about the whole, like she was a daughter of a preacher, and I just want to know more
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff. But I guess it just leaves you wondering. It makes you think about it, type of thing.
No, two things is our friend. This is hard, I get it, but you know how we always mention that A24 has a brand now. They have like a rep. Uh, I don't ever want to compare their movies to each other, but Dakota was like saying that he didn't think this was as good as Midsummer, and I was like, well, I wouldn't compare them both. I was like, they're both horror movies, and
Yeah,
they're
Midsummer's
both
3 hours long.
yeah. And I was thinking about that. I was like, this movie were another hour, I'm sure it could reach the tension of
Oh yeah, for sure.
that.
Because
Yeah,
then it would have delved into more just like ex- exploring and explaining like the characters and then their
yeah,
relationships with one another. And so when compared to like Midsummer, like I just remember like everybody feeling unique as well.
yeah.
And so
They
whenever
had a
like
lot of
anything
time for that
happens to
too.
them, you're just like, oh my god, you know,
Did I tell you I saw the theatrical cut of that, and I was like, why wouldn't they just have released the extended version of this?
because people were ready
Uh,
to sit down for 3 hours
it
apparently.
was already, but it was already 2.5. Like they only got rid of half an hour. Why?
Yeah.
Might as well, right? Like that's not a whole lot much longer. But I guess that whenever theaters try and do theater slots, they'll add. I think a half hour can affect one entire showtime.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why Batman v Superman that happened to that too, random, but that's another one that I know that happened to. Um, and the kind of scary that this is I will say this much, like it left my like it's not because I get queasy or anything at deaths because I'm like hell yeah whenever they happen usually because I kind of am a fan of that. Unless they get like grotesque for no reason, like I don't like stuff like Hostel where they just die aggressively and they don't really deserve it. Like that, I'm not a fan of that. Um, but no, I mean, I was a huge fan of it.
I
My
mean,
personal rating for
what
this,
were the like what parts was it that made you think like, oh, that was great, that was amazing, type of thing?
it was sort of, I really liked all the characters, which is where we differ in that, and I didn't think it was like perfect or anything, obviously, but the sort of way that this movie manipulates tension and the way it was like a lot of the sort of editing techniques and the humor behind some of the deaths that I found unique about it. I didn't think it was
That's
as
what I was like. I didn't think it was humorous
yeah,
too. I don't know.
really.
It just felt like it just happened and that was it. Like, I didn't
That's
really find it
interesting.
funny. I don't know.
I thought some of it was quite funny. uh, Jack messaged me a couple days ago. I think I told you about this, and our friend Jack doesn't necessarily watch a whole lot of independent movies. I can definitely tell you he's seen two, and that would be Licorice Pizza and this. And Jack messaged me and he was like, "What'd you think of X?" And I was like, "Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great." And he was like, "I don't think I've ever seen a movie like that before." And I was like, "Well, I mean, there are a lot of movies like it. I will say that, but I guess I get what he means by that." And anytime an A24 horror movie comes out, I always go to Rotten Tomatoes and I check the audience score because the way they promote their horror movies specifically is that they will always make them look super mainstream, which I think is really funny. And this was at like 70%, which is higher than like something. The Green Knight is not necessarily horror, but it has a lot of that infused into it. Or Midsummer or Hereditary, and those are all at like 50. Um, because I think that people are just like, what the hell? Like, what is this? What's your overall score for it?
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. That's interesting. I feel like that might be our biggest score difference we've ever had. But like, I'm not a hardcore defender of this necessarily. Like, if you told me you liked it, I'd be like, okay, I get it. Uh, but in terms of I was trying to piece together. I was like, what are my favorite movies of the year so far? And this was there, but I've only seen like 10 to 12, I think. So that's kind of hard to judge already. We're going to move on to Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Erwin, I want to ask you, how did you find out about the anime and what did you think of it?
I found out by myself. So I'm a big weeb guy. I weeb and weed.
Whoa. You're a cool dude.
Yeah, thanks. I get that a lot.
How much weed?
I don't know, 20 pounds a day. How much
I'm
is weed
telling on
again?
you.
That's a lot of weed, isn't it?
What's your mom's number?
1-800 Safe Auto.
She works there?
I guess. State Farms.
That's cool.
Right?
Date Farms?
No, State Farm.
That's not 1-800.
Oh, you would know, huh?
I would know.
Leave my mom out of this. No, where did I hear from? No, I heard it from you, doofus. What the heck? What are you talking about?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually...
Yeah, like, I didn't hear from anybody else but you. And you were like, Erwin, you should watch it because I'm fighting Panda. And I'm like, hey, you had me at...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You had me at hello.
No, not at all. But Panda. So... But yeah, I mean, the first half of the show, I thought it was kind of slow. But you just kept telling me, like, no, just keep watching it. You'll
That always happens with you, though. Remember that happened with Demon Slayer?
I mean, with My Hero as well.
Yeah.
But
I think that's just how anime works.
I always think it's like the first season.
Yeah.
Typically, it's like they're just establishing the characters and like the world itself. And so, like, once it starts happening, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know? So, like, I know the first half, like, the second half of that season, it got way better. And then again, it was just more action packed, so of course it got better for me. Because just love watching anime fights, so.
They are always just so well animated.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I mean, granted, I don't think you've ever watched a show with terrible animation. But if you want to, watch Seven Deadly Sins, from what I understand, the later seasons.
Oh, I don't know.
You're like, oh, it's bad? I'm not going to do that.
It's like when people, like, recommend a show to other people, and I hate when they say, oh, it's a great show, right? For these first 4 seasons, but then there's these 2 seasons where it's just terrible, like, don't watch them. But then after that, it gets better. And you're just like, what? Like, what makes you think...
fucking Dexter.
Like, what makes you think I want to watch that?
It's so funny to me when they're like, don't worry, it starts off really strong, gets terrible for 75% of it.
I'm like, why would I want to do that to myself?
And then the ending is pretty good, but the finale sucks.
Yes.
You're like, why would I do any of that? The way I found out about this show was, it was actually about a couple weeks into the show starting. Aaron had showed me an intro for this, but obviously I didn't know like what it was at the time. And it was like on Instagram. You know how they'll always have like, check out this anime coming out right now or whatever.
No, I don't get ads like that.
No, it's not an ad, but it's more so just like, you know how people make those edits on Instagram, or it'll be like this season's anime lineup.
No.
And okay, well, I see those.
Oh, okay.
And I thought you were supposed to be number 1 weeb man in the world, man. What happened?
No, weed, not weeb.
You said weeb and weed.
Oh, okay. Clearly, you just remember things. All right.
I do remember. You said it 2 minutes ago. How would I forget?
Okay, I forgot.
And I saw the intro, right? And I was like, oh my god, there's a panda. So, obviously intrigued. And for some reason, we started it, but it took us forever to finish, and I'm not really sure why. Like, there was just 4 months where we just weren't watching it, and I don't know what that was, but I remember one of our friends, she was like, why haven't you finished this? And I was like, well, because I got to watch this with my roommates. And she was like, nah, just watch it by yourself. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And it was frustrating waiting, but we did finish it. Also, would need to before this movie. Granted, they announced this movie a few months ago. And I remember, it was weird. It was originally going to be a 1-day release. And I thought that was super strange. And I was like, isn't that show like really popular here? It would be like if Demon Slayer was here for like a day. And then it now has a full-on release. I guess they realized the popularity of it, and it's instantly become one of the most successful anime movies here ever, because it has become more mainstream, really. And You know those people. I will say this. They're when I saw this last weekend. You know those people on TikTok and stuff that will do the trend where they like say something at the beginning of an anime movie during the titles or whatever.
Yes.
Had that happen. Somebody like said the Aaron Yeager thing,
Nice.
if you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I say that to myself all the time.
But then somebody decided it wasn't loud enough, so they did it again, even louder.
It's like, dang, why is anyone laughing? Just middle of the movie. Why is anyone laughing? I'm gonna start saying it again.
Yeah, just do it in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, just keep doing it until everyone laughs.
That's the one thing where I'm like, dude, like, I'm not gonna hate, but I don't get it. Anyway, what you think of this movie?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought the main character of this movie was a similar character in the show. Clearly, I was wrong. But yeah, overall, I love the characters. I guess what I struggle when it comes to like prequels, I guess knowing what happens after.
Yeah.
So like, anytime a character is like suffering through anything, or like they look like they're about to die, you're like, they can't die.
Here's the funniest thing about that to me, because you thought this character was somebody from the show the whole time, and I didn't. And I thought this person was going to die, so when they didn't die, I got confused. And I was like, where the hell are they in the show? You saw the after credit scene, I assume?
I didn't know there was an after credit scene.
Oh, dude.
What was it?
Okay, so what happens is the main character of this Yuta in the after credit scene is with the guy that has the whips as his weapons.
The whips?
Yeah.
What do you mean whips?
Gojo calls him like the foreigner.
Okay.
And he's with him in, I think, Kenya? And Gojo walks up to him and he's like, hey, long time no see. And it ends right there.
Oh, okay.
Because he's not dead, and he's like, because during that, I spent a lot of it whenever they reveal that he doesn't die. I was like, okay, so if he's not in the school anymore, where the hell is he?
So I guess
because he didn't die.
So he's just training in another country.
They implied that, and I was like, is that what's happening here?
Oh.
You know what I do love though, even just as, and somebody else pointed this out, so I'm not necessarily making like a new point, but I agree with it, was that the story of this alone, just like as its own thing, is a great idea.
Yes.
Like the idea that this guy is kind of responsible for, or semi-responsible for, his sort of fiance. I guess they are engaged technically.
Dang, what do you mean technically? They're literally they were like 5 years old.
Hey, they loved each other.
Yeah, it seemed like it. They only love each other because like he was like, no, I don't want her to die, so I'm gonna possess her. You're like, what?
And then she becomes a demon.
Basically.
He thinks she's so sexy in her demon form.
Yeah, I guess.
Also, like, it goes without saying in terms of shonen fight scenes. The fights are great.
Oh yeah,
like,
sure.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where, you know how I always say, like, it's never a good complaint to have necessarily in terms of actual critique, but it leaves you wanting more. I'm like, oh damn, like those fights could have gone on for longer and I'd be happy. But no, in terms of like any kind of problem I had with it, mine would be narrative structure. I felt like occasionally it felt very episodic in that scenes would happen and then they would do the cut to black thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And it would just feel, I was like, okay, so if this were to be an arc in the show, it would end right here.
Oh, okay.
And they did it a few different times. It felt like 4 or 5 separate episodes pretty much, but it still felt like a movie, of course. I just felt like it felt chaptery because I don't know if this was originally in the manga or anything. I couldn't say that much. I haven't read it. But I think it's an original story by the author, and it is canon. Obviously, like, it'd be weird if it just wasn't. And I'm unclear on that, but that's sort of how I felt about it in terms of any issues I had What about you?
They should have shown more Panda.
Well, yeah. Always.
Always. But no, I mean, I thought it was just really good. But I totally agree with you. It did feel like the narrative structure of the movie, where it just didn't feel very. It didn't feel very coherent. So like, it just cut a lot, which I feel like it would just happen regardless when it comes to movies like that, where they're part of a show, because I feel like people just would watch certain things like they binge it.
Yeah.
And so that movie would just fit right in with the show.
I was thinking that, but I was like, this makes sense as a movie because where would you put it in the show?
Yes.
But I watched it with our friend Alex, and he'd never actually even seen the show before. He started with this. And I think it's actually a really great starting off point if you haven't seen the show yet and you kind of want to get a general gist of what it is. This is kind of perfect. Like, it introduces a lot of the characters of the show already. It explains what Gojo is and what he does, and that he's like insane. And I think shows like this or movies like this always do that really interesting thing where a lot of people are already in this world, but of course you get the main character to be someone that like doesn't know what's going on. So you're kind of the vessel through them to learn. So if for some reason you're listening to this with full spoilers and you haven't seen the show, watch this movie first if you want to. I think it would be interesting at the very least. Kind of like wasn't it you? We were talking about watching The Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings. You did that, right?
Yes.
How was that?
Yeah, it was great. I thought they were all great movies.
That also, like, The Hobbit gets unfair comparisons to Lord of the Rings. I feel like you kind of just increase from quality as it goes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like it's all the same, regardless. Like the story itself, and I mean, you and I always talk about how people just anytime like a movie or a show is expanded in that universe, people will just compare regardless, no matter what.
No, that's fair.
Like Game of Thrones, right? So how Game of Thrones is having like a whole prequel series, and it's gonna be compared to the show. How does the first season compare to the first season? You're just like, what?
The
like,
third? Oh, I mean,
no, like the first season to the first season of the two different shows.
Oh, yeah.
You know how people just compare stuff
I'm
like
guilty
that.
of it. I'm guilty of it. We compared Boba Fett to Mandalorian constantly, but one kind of just turned into that show.
No, I mean, that one's different because literally it became more of Mandalorian than it did Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just, I mean, you can see why that would be compared to it.
And I forgot if we agreed if we're reviewing Halo or not, but obviously Halo, whenever that started today, whenever that starts, is like gonna be compared to the games a lot. Obviously,
I mean that's so different though because shows and like video games are so different in terms of story because you have in a sense you're playing. Those are video games at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you're trying to get like a certain score, achievements, and all this and that. And like, of course, if the story's great, it's gonna happen. But the story only happens with the cutscenes. And that's it.
I've always found the Halo games to have incredible stories. That's why I'm so into them. I'm not like one of those.
Oh, so you played all of them?
Most.
Okay, so you're not a big Halo fan.
I still haven't played Infinite, or I'm not like obsessed. I
didn't say you were
obsessed.
Stories. Well, clearly you're not a big Halo fan.
I'm sorry, man. And not everyone of us can be weed fans like you.
I'm a weed fan. Yeah, I love weed.
I'm telling on you.
Okay.
No, another thing I like, two different points to be made going with prequels was I don't like that people dismiss prequels immediately. Like, I feel like if they're done right, they can be just as good and just as well told as their original shows. I find Better Call Saul, for example, to be an even better show than Breaking Bad. And by the way, Erwin, that'll be on Netflix next week, the season 5, because...
You think Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad? I think it's as good. I can't really say which one's better, I'll be honest.
You should see the news. You should see that season that's getting put on Netflix. That's all I'll say.
But I mean, I feel like every season of Breaking Bad is as great. Like, I don't think one season's better than the other type of thing.
I mean, I don't know if you ever heard me. If anybody ever asked me what my favorite TV show is, I say, "Oh, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul,"
Yeah.
because they're just like, because I'm not gonna pick one or the other.
Yeah, I can't say that either. I'm like, I can't really choose. Like, I think Better Call Saul is like on par with Breaking Bad so far. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
like just like, can I just say the both because they're in the same world and they're kind of the same.
Well, I'm
show?
gonna compare both seasons.
But season
Season one, season one.
go season 1 of The Wire or season 1 of Community.
Oh, I would also say the Community because I
haven't seen The Wire.
I haven't seen The Wire, but I would prefer comedy any day in terms of drama.
Damn, I've heard The Wire is incredible though.
Yeah, me too.
Through The Wire.
That sounds like a fun topic to talk about. Just different comedy shows.
That does sound fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you one of my favorites right now, and it's New Girl. Like
I love New Girl.
I want to watch that show again. Yeah. I think I've told you this.
Uh-huh.
Our dynamic with each other reminds me of Nick and I'm forgetting his name. I love him.
Oh, Schmidt.
Schmidt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm definitely Schmidt.
Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took one of those BuzzFeed personality quizzes one time, and I got him, and I was like, yeah, go figure.
All right, Daniel, calm down. It's just a BuzzFeed questionnaire.
BuzzFeed, but they know it all, man.
Take a BuzzFeed. Do you have cancer? Let me check. Let me check real quick.
That's like those people that do the. Is it WebMD where it's like, you have a cough? You're like, oh, you're stage 4 diabetic.
Oh no.
Like, I'm gonna die. Have you felt bloated? You're obese. That's more like the.
Do you feel bloated? Oh yeah, you have brain cancer. Okay.
You know the Wii Fit scales, those.
The Wii Fit scales?
Yeah, so the Wii, whenever it came out, it had a scale, right?
Okay.
But it would be for like Wii Sports and stuff.
Okay.
Or like you know the Wii Fit trainer
Yeah.
that everyone kind of likes. And there'll be this thing where it'll say your weight or whatever, and if you're like, oh, your average weight, or oh, your whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously, since this is manufactured by Japan, and their weight over there is like drastically different from over here,
Uh-huh.
it would always say like 110 pounds, morbidly obese on the on the Wii Fit scale. I thought that was really funny, because like I saw something that was like, raise your hand if you got body issues from the Wii Fit scale when you were like 10 years old. Anyway, not a whole lot of problems with this necessarily. One other thing is I do kind of feel the missing main characters. Because I love them. Like, I love Yuji, and Gojo's in this a fair enough amount, and so is Nanami's in it for 2 seconds, but I liked the new character a lot, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Enough that I was like, and that's hard to do, to introduce just a brand new main character, and make you care about them, especially when everyone else is so established as is already, that you'll be like, do we really need to get this? But I think adding that story that he has and making him complex and kind of like responsible for some of his the things that have gone wrong makes that character even more interesting. But no, I love this, and I don't know why I'm so surprised it was as good as it was. Like, obviously, Mappa has all the credibility in the world, and I think it's just more so the fact that anime movies are becoming better, because back before, like, Broly and Mugen Train and this, anime films weren't really that good. Like, in terms of tying into shows, I mean, because of course there's Ghibli, there's Weathering with You, Your Name, obviously, movies like that. But I think stuff like this, because I feel like back whenever they would do, you know, how they would be like, one night only Fathom event, Digimon movie or whatever. You know what I'm referring to?
No.
Oh, well, they'll do stuff like that, and it kind of felt like they were like phoning in these movies. But now it really doesn't feel like they are. I'm glad that movies like this are getting this good, and obviously, like, you shouldn't be surprised, I guess, but also the fact that this is a prequel, and that's also an element to it that surprised me as well. And I was a huge fan of this. I love the show. I Love this movie. I'm giving this the same rating that I gave X, actually. The 4.5. Really great scores from me this week on all this stuff.
Why are you
what about
patting
Erwin?
yourself that you gave higher scores for movies? It's just based on opinions. That's like saying, I'm going to give all the Transformer movies 5.5 stars or something. I don't know what.
Would you?
I don't care. Wow, look at me. I give high ratings to all these movies that I just saw.
I saw these, like, what are you trying to say to me?
I give this new Jujutsu Kaisen movie 4.5 stars.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at you, huh? You're so cool.
I know, you don't need to
stars.
remind me. I don't know why you're telling me this again.
The weed guy? That's you right there, man.
Yeah, I told you I bought pounds of it. I'm confused. Why are you just confirming things?
Oh my god, Erwin, you know what's next week that we're reviewing?
What?
It's April 1st, boys. That means that Morbius is out.
Finally.
That feels like not a real movie.
It doesn't.
We'll be doing Morbius and Attack on Titan with a guest whenever that finishes. I'm not really sure. I need to look that up. But Morbius, I'm pretty sure, will be just us. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for listening. If you could, follow us and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all platforms that podcasts are found. It really boosts our viewership, and that means a lot. Erwin, where can they find you?
On Instagram at Erwin.trout.
Okay. And Twitter?
I don't use Twitter.
Yeah, okay. And his Twitter is Erwin_Trout.
I just said I don't use it, so why would I? Okay.
And my social media is Para32Para on Instagram and Para323Para on Twitter. And we have an official page for the podcast on Twitter at FilmBetween. And I'm thinking about adding an Instagram. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, we will see you next time for Morbius. Oh my god. Thank you so much for listening.